you so much for having me again here. It was an honor to be here last time, which was about a month ago. Yeah, in July, I believe it was, or maybe very end of June. And years ago. I feel so honored to be here today, and I'm so glad I was able to stay and come on early and hear all of you, because it's so rich what all of you said. I took a lot of notes, so I'm kind of going off of what I planned to share. Not completely. I have some really powerful practical exercises that I'm going to run you guys through, because that is the thing. A lot of times we hear we should forgive, we know we have to forgive, or we think we should, but we don't know how to do it. And my path and the amount of pain I was in all those years ago led me to so many different ways of learning these processes. And I took what I could and I put together a process that I know works when you do these exercises. And I know resistance comes up, and so I can deal with that as well. What I would like to do potentially is have this more interactive than maybe they usually are, because there was so much here, and I don't want to touch the surface. I do want to give you my exercises, but if you're like, oh, I don't really get how to do that, I want to be able to say something that could maybe spark a huge breakthrough and transformation for you. So I had a quote that I had put in my book that this is really, I'd say, where we want to go with the forgiveness. It's a Rumi quote. Only let the moving waters calm you down, and the sun and moon will be reflected on the surface of your being. And that really speaks to when we get triggered, when we're in that place and we don't know how to get out of it, to remember that we have access. You know, like what Nita was talking about, it's like you get these diagnoses and you're lost. I found out my mother was killed, and I was lost, and I was down, and I was dark. And then with enough presence, which was also mentioned here too, being in the present moment, accepting what is, there's a crack, there's an opening. So even if you've held unforgiveness for 40 years, 50 years, know that it's possible even right here today with strong intention to have a crack, an opening where you didn't have it before. Because once that crack is there, like miracles happen, because that energy is like released from our body. That contracted energy is released. So there's an opening for new information that we need to come in. There's a healing that can come in, emotional, spiritual, physical, mental. And there's a few things you guys wrote that I just wanted to address. And then so in one of the shares, it was mentioned that, you know, how we're brought up, obviously, how we're brought up affects us so much. And some people let our parents and things that happen from the past, could be relationships, stay with us in the present. And so you want to look at your life, and I'm going to give a very practical exercise, but you want to look at your life and say, you know, what judgments that my parents had, or my siblings had, or a person had against me when I was growing up, which one of those judgments did I take on and it's in my head now? Because they're not here anymore. You got to really get this. You are so much more in control of your life now in this moment as an adult, when we let go of those voices that were, you know, they were probably said, or we experienced so much that they're in our bodies, you know, the way the brain works. For those of you who study Joe Dispenza, it's like, it's not our fault that we still hang on to these things, but it's our responsibility now to do what we can to let go of those judgments. And looking at, why do we hold on to the resentments? Oftentimes we hold on to the resentments or the unforgiveness of something from the past because, you know, several things, but we, you know, let me give a story of myself so I can kind of explain it. So my father shot and killed my mother, married her sister, my aunt. My brother and I had different fathers. It was my father who killed our mother. And that was the biggest rift. He immediately knew that my father killed our mother when my father was trying to say that he couldn't remember what happened. He didn't remember who pulled the trigger and all these things, despite the fact that the police weren't called for 8 hours. His gun was, there was a cleanup, but my brother could see it clearly. I couldn't, because this was my father. And back then I just emotionally couldn't lose both of my parents in one night. But here's the thing, my brother and I had a huge rift, and I don't remember if I talked about this last time. For 6 years, we didn't speak. And I felt very justified. So look at your own lives. I felt very justified because at the time when our mom died, he was calling my father a murderer. He was controlling. And when we stopped talking, I felt like he abandoned me. And he was my only brother, my only sibling, my older brother. How dare he? And I stayed in that blame of him for many years. So look at your own lives, who you're blaming. The reason I think I did is because I didn't want to look at my own part in it. And we've talked about this. So someone brought that up too. Part, where have we done what we're accusing someone else to have done? And it is a way in to have compassion if you apply radical self-forgiveness. So I looked at, well, I only looked at it because I was we were taking my dad to court for wrongful death. I made that decision. And when I did, I knew that I had to be in alignment with my brother. So there was an outer factor, but don't let another day go by, another year go by, because there's not an outer factor that's making you do this work. I didn't want to go to court and be contentious and fighting with my brother. So I did all the forgiveness work that I had done around my father, and I applied it to my brother. But here's the thing, I was in blame. And then when I looked deeply into it, I thought, well, everything I blame him for, abandoning me, I could say I abandoned him. I'm his only sister. I'm his baby sister. And I went, and I think this is why most people don't take responsibility or look at it this way or let go of the blame. I went into a deep, dark remorse of how horrible I was for blocking my love from him. But that's where, and I really believe this is the key, that's where radical self-love comes in. We don't want to let go of that blame, because oftentimes if we let go of that blame, we have to look at ourselves. And if we don't know it's a call for love, it's not a call for beating ourselves up, we won't do it. I was able to forgive my brother. And, you know, the way they taught in that master's program, and I know all of you have done so much work, was, you know, forgiving the judgment I had. Like, ultimately in the advanced course, there's nothing to forgive. Everything just is how it is. If you're willing to believe that, your life will be more peaceful. It's hard, it's challenging. Gosh, it's challenging in this day and age, you know, to believe everything is just the way it is, but that's acceptance. When we're fighting with what it is, we're always going to be suffering more. So I forgave my brother. I forgave the judgments. I forgave him for abandoning me. And then the next breath, I forgave myself for abandoning him. And, you know, about 6 years after that, he invited me to do my one-woman show at his theater in Austria, a big Jewish theater festival. His son was in the audience. We did a Q&A, because I have a critically acclaimed one-woman show about our life story. And we sat on the stage together to do the Q&A. And now he's in my life through, you know, since COVID, the family is doing Zoom calls. We're doing game days, and my nephews are on there. And this was 6 years I didn't speak with him, and I just had hate in my heart. So I still have boundaries, and I'll talk a little bit about boundaries here too, you know, because the person that we forgive doesn't necessarily mean you want them in your life all the time, right? Like if they're controlling, if they're negative. But what I have, think about my brother, I think love. I don't have to avoid and distract myself. My heart is open. So that was one thing. Let me ask, does anyone have any questions? Because like I said, I have a lot that I can share here, but I also want to see, does it spark something in you that you have a question that, you know, just keep it short, you know, like 2 minutes of a question, and then I could go deeper into that. Go ahead, just unmute yourself, Danielle.
Yes,
Danielle.
hi. My question is, once you do forgive the person or you let go, how do you trust them again?
Yeah, it's a great question. This is what I mean. You don't if they're untrustworthy. This is also a great question, because that's what I think they're linked together. You're like, okay, I forgive them. And then if they've not taken responsibility or shown remorse, there's no reason to trust them. So this is about really connecting with your own self-trust and knowing that you don't need to have someone in your life who is going to hurt you. Don't believe someone's lies. And I think a lot of people do, because they feel a sense of ease and then they're hurt again. Or if it's a relationship, they're cheated on again, or whatever, you know, someone takes money again, and then they're like, wait, that doesn't make sense. So it's really important to have the forgiveness with a healthy boundary, like so important. I forgave my dad completely, and I took him to court for wrongful death. I actually couldn't set a healthy boundary with him until I did that. And that was the time, because I would have him in my life, I would not have him in my life, but I was not having a real relationship with him because everything was on the surface. And my dad was, you know, if we need to label just for quicker, he was a narcissist and had a lack of empathy. So for me to keep thinking, and it was my inner child, keep thinking he's going to take responsibility, he's going to change, he's going to talk about things, was delusional for me. But again, you have to forgive yourself. We're taught how to be with, certainly with our parents. So I took my dad to court for wrongful death. And when I did that, that set the boundary that I was unable to, because when I did that, and we did win a $2 million judgment, he skipped town because he didn't want to pay the judgment, and I never saw him again. But I had to do that thing that was probably, I would say that was probably the most courageous thing I did, was to take my dad to court for wrongful death. But, and this is really, really important, I was at the University of Santa Monica at the time working through this. And I cleared my energy so that I took him to court from a place of self-honor and integrity versus punishment and hatred. Because that punishment and hatred lives within us. And if I would have taken him to court from that, we won a $2 million judgment, but we never collected, put his money in offshore accounts, then that would have been more reason to be upset with the person. So look at your own lives. So yeah, so you don't want to trust them. I believe people earn trust. And one huge, huge breakthrough of like freedom for me was the realization that my dad was a narcissist and had a lack of empathy, because I stopped my lifelong pattern of trying to get him to take responsibility for anything in his life. And you also want to look at this with, we don't want to be controlled, right? Nobody wants to be controlled, but how controlling was I if I was like, why can't he tell me the truth? If he was just different, how many of you do this? Please raise your hands, because I know I do it. Even if it's for a moment or 10 minutes, how many of you want someone else to be different, say something differently, be different, so that, you know, they would do the right thing? Exactly. It's maddening how we do that all the time. And yet when someone tries to control us, how dare they, right? And it's really true what Mary Grace was saying. The key is saying, what is that pointing to? What is that pointing to in me? What can I heal in me? And control doesn't have to be that you're trying to control someone else. You know, we could be trying to control the way we eat. We could be trying to control that we don't, you know, that we work out, you know, like we want to look at where we are also overly controlling with ourselves, not in loving, not in suggestion, you know, not in flow. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, so let me touch on a few other things. And of course, I really do want questions so we can go one step deeper, because then you guys will get even more, because I'll be able to address those things. Right? It's that projection. Someone was talking about projections. What is it that they're doing that is really something in us that we haven't looked at or haven't acknowledged? I'm always doing that whenever I'm triggered. Because the point of power is within us, right? I have an interesting thing. This is a small thing in the big scheme of things. I do use my story because it's such a big dramatic story. So it usually knocks down people's resistance to thinking, well, my issue is too much. And, you know, that resistance that says, I got to stay in my pain because, you know, what the person did is too much. But here's something so brilliant that happened the other day. It really is true that as you do this work, you can have less time in the trigger. if you're willing to do the work. And that's what I always aim for. Usually right now, let me knock on wood, I'm at about 10, 15 minutes. I get really, really, really triggered about something. And then I'm like, okay, wait, maybe I move around a little bit, take a walk, and then go, what is this about? This is, and then I look at the issues behind it. And this is so healing to have more peace. This is a simple thing, but of course you can apply it to bigger things, right? There's a lot happening in the world that is for me, for sure, I would like to change, or I don't understand. So the other day I got my car cleaned, and I haven't gotten it washed in a while, but where we live, there's a lot of trees, and there's all this stuff that gets on them. So let's say it's $20. I come into the to park, and the second I pull my car in, there's a tree that's overhanging. It's like really low, and my car gets like filthy on the top. And it's not my house, it's my housemate's house, and he's a very good friend. And I'm usually very centered, and I just, that feeling, I can't believe this. And it came in me, and I couldn't stop myself. And I went to him, because it's something that as the landlord, he should have taken care of. And I went to him and I was like, I can't believe this. Now, I didn't yell, I'm not a yeller, but my energy was that of yelling. And I was really upset, and he's very gentle man, and my very close friend. And he was, you can see, if you actually pay attention, even when you're triggered, to someone's energy, you'll see if you're hurting them with your energy too. And I could see it. I was in justification of, well, I am not responsible for someone else's feelings, which I do believe that, but I am responsible for my energy that I bring to things. Okay, so it lasted about, 10, 15 minutes at the most. And we talked about it. And all of a sudden, when the energy was able to kind of dissipate, I apologized. And I didn't have to over apologize. It's a bad thing to do too, or it can be. I said I was sorry for the energy I brought to it. And I said, okay, what is this really about? So you want to go deeper, 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 right? And like a simple thing, but I was like, the first thing is, I just spent $20. I don't want to waste money. Well, what's behind that made me triggered? I'm like, there must be some fear about scarcity that I haven't looked at, because otherwise I'd be upset. Like, that sucks, but I wouldn't be like, I just washed my car, like in the big scheme of things. And then the other thing was, thing. Wait, give me 1 second. Oh. If you go one step deeper, I learned such a story on it. Why am I in this space? Why aren't I in my own space? And I went like that, and it went on, the story about it. So that's the level of, then if you write, what am I really upset about? Then you can heal it, and you can forgive it, and you can move on. Like, that was the opportunity there. So you don't want to dismiss it if you're upset. You actually want to do an inquiry and say, what is this really about for me? So, like Mary Grace said, I believe, whenever you're saying I'm upset because, which we learned, or I'm happy because of someone else, of something else, you're disempowering yourself, and it's just not true. We're responsible for our emotions, but we also are responsible for using discernment and saying, well, that's not for me. I don't want to be around that person. Or, oh, I'm upset by the way someone spoke to me. I'm upset by the way someone is not taking responsibility, and then work with that upset. And one of the brilliant things you can do, which is, it's not in my book, but it's like, well, it's in my program, Phoenix Rising, is something that I don't know if you guys have ever read The Presence Process by Michael Brown, but that's not even like talking about what's wrong. It's looking at your body. Like, when I was in that upset, I could have been like, well, where am I feeling upset? Before I went to my friend, oh, well, my throat is feeling really contracted. And I could have breathed into that part of my body that was feeling like that. And that could have moved the energy. Sometimes we don't have to do like talk therapy. When you hold on to unforgiveness, you want to look at what the payoff is. In my experience, there's always a payoff. We don't want to acknowledge it, but there's a payoff. And sometimes it is, well, the payoff with my brother was, I didn't have to acknowledge how wrong I was or how negative I was. The payoff of blaming him, I didn't know how to set healthy boundaries then, and my brother can be negative. So the payoff was that I didn't have to be around someone who was negative all the time. But if you identify the payoff, that might be your in to how you can actually forgive the person. And forgiving the person, I mean, there were a lot of great quotes here earlier, but forgiving the person is letting go of how you hold them in your body. Even if you think you're compartmentalizing or, oh, it's on the side, it's like, I'm so touched, you know, by the honesty here of like, oh, when I think of that person, I still am unforgiving. And it's like, whatever. I've been like that with my aunt, my father married my aunt. I think I mentioned that. When he married my aunt, I was unforgiving that he married my aunt. I was unforgiving of my aunt. How could she ever do that? And for years, I was like, whatever, that's just what happens. Like, so cocky. Like, I compartmentalized. She was in another state. But the truth was, every few years, I'd get triggered by something that reminded me of my aunt. And whenever we don't address something, it's leaked energy. It's leaked love and joy. That is an amount of love and joy you don't have in your life because of that person. And I might have said it last time, so I won't say it here. I had a huge breakthrough around my aunt when she died. And like viscerally, my neck relaxed, my heart opened up, but it was not because I was like, okay, I'm gonna forgive her now. It was because it was divine. My mother's spirit came to me, and just, I saw her welcoming my aunt to the other side, just welcoming her sister who married my father after my father killed her 20 years after the fact. And I just started sobbing, like, I've been weight on me this whole time, and my mother's spirit was just love for her sister. Still makes me teary. Let's see. Oh, I just wanted to share some breakthrough points, because this talks to like knowing you have to forgive but not knowing how. So I looked at where in my life did I have breakthrough points, and here's one breakthrough I had. After my mom died, I was in a dark depression. And sometimes when we're depressed, and I know you guys have done a lot of work, but sometimes when we're depressed, we don't even realize the effect our energy is having on other people and people around us. We don't even know what we're saying, because oftentimes we're very self-absorbed. So it was about a year after my mom died, or 2 years. And I was out with a friend, and he said to me, you know, if you take your own life, you are not going to be reunited with your mother. And it was a wake-up call for me, because I didn't even know I was saying these thoughts out loud. I thought they were the thoughts when I'm alone in my head in my bedroom. And that was enough of a wake-up call, my love for my mother, to be like, well, if I'm not going to reunite with her, like, I believed it enough to be like, well, if I'm not going to reunite with her, then I better start thriving in my life, because I want to make her proud. So sometimes you can use someone you love to help you move through where you're blocked, to opening your heart again, getting out of depression, taking back the joy in your life. I mentioned this before, a real breakthrough in my energy was when I got that my father is never going to take responsibility. So if you're thinking about that person who should say they're sorry, take responsibility for hurting you, just know you are keeping yourself bonded to them with that anything from them. When you realize you don't need anything from them for your wellness, again, everything opens up. When I realized I didn't, or maybe you have that friend that you're always talking to that you wish they would just get it, or that family member, if you actually just allow them to have their own process and take that energy back and love yourself with it, your life works better. Okay, and then, okay, I have a little time. So we talked about projections. Okay, Ho'oponopono, which was mentioned also, the Hawaiian forgiveness prayer, is extremely powerful. I don't know those of you who have studied it or not. I think the book, I can't remember the title of it. It's by Joe Vitale and the doctor, Zero Limits or something like that. It's a great book that explains that Ho'oponopono really in detail, and it's helped so many people. I had a client who was having a lot of fights with his wife, and he said, I don't understand what you're listening to her. I'll let her just, talk about how bad I'm doing, and I'll just listen. And she just gets madder and madder. And I'm like, well, I hear that you're not talking, but I don't hear that you're standing there in love. How about do the Hawaiian prayer while she's saying that stuff? And it transformed their relationship, because all of a sudden it went from, okay, I'm doing what I think I should do, to feeling the experience of, well, with Ho'oponopono, it's really about we're one with whatever's happening. So then it really is a lack of separation. So if you're saying, thank you, thank you, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, but it's the oneness of all things. Like my ex-wife and I, one time we were fighting, and then we're like, why are we doing this? We're really one. So why would we fight with ourselves, right? If you believe in that with the energy of the world. Big thing is separating your stories from the facts. Big story about why someone is wrong, why we can't move on, but look at the facts. Like, is there someone here who wants to just briefly share something that they would like help with this on? Like, because we all have stories. We all have like, well, if she would have just done this or that, I can help just identify what the facts are so that you can move on. Anyone brave enough?
Brenda?
Yeah.
I'm just struck by listening to you, and it's maybe a smaller thing, but everything you're saying is just so powerfully connected to the idea that our well-being is that the people closest to us are the ones who really affect our well-being more than anything. And they're just, even on small things, not even on the big things you're talking about, but just the little things. And somebody, even my wife, who has certain ways of looking at things or how she reacts to things, and I realize I can't change her.
I know.
I can't change the way she does things, or that she gets really upset about things that I just think are not even worth dealing with. But, when you get right down to it, you can't change other people. You can't change the way they do things. And you really want to reach out and say, well, why are you getting so upset about that little thing? And, you try to support, but at the same time, you can't change somebody else. And I just wanted your thought about that. I mean, when you're seeing someone maybe suffering over some little thing.
Yeah, well, that's so great, because we try to change them anyway, right? We try to, or when we say to someone, I don't know why you're doing it like that, they're not open and receptive because we're judging them. We may be saying it nicely, right? Here's a key. It might help you. It's something from my life with my brother. So my brother, who I love dearly, but we're very different, is a pretty negative person. He can be. And he's the type of person, maybe you guys have someone like this in your life, or maybe you don't, who can tend to put people down so he is lifted up. And so when we reconciled after the whole law case with my father, he lives in Europe. I went there with my ex, and we were in his kitchen, and he started sharing about when I was in college, and when we were there, I was in my 30s. He started sharing stories with my ex about how in college I didn't, study very much, and, and how I partied all the time. I didn't even know why he was doing that, but this is after I got my master's in spiritual psychology. And in the past, because of the dynamic with the relationship, I would have been like, I have a master's degree in spiritual psychology now, of course, in a younger age stage. And I would have said that, and he would have continued. But instead, because I then had a sense of security, I was no longer like my brother, the idol, and all that stuff I had growing up. I didn't say anything. I let him talk, and then he stopped. No more negativity, because I didn't keep him bonded in that pattern with me. So you might want to look at, how am I keeping that pattern alive? Because you're putting energy into it. That's what we have control over. And I literally don't have that issue with my brother after a lifelong pattern of that dynamic. Okay? Yeah, so look at where can you back up? Pick what you need to talk about, but yeah. And if you know, there are definitely ways where you can talk about what works or what doesn't work in a relationship. Sometimes you need a third party there, or you get like a love languages. I forgot what that other great book was now. But you know, you read things and it's like not in the moment when someone's doing something that really gets at you and stuff like that as well. Thanks, that's a good question. Let's see, separate stories from the facts. That's a big one, guys. That's a big one. And I want to get to this exercise though. Let's see. Oh, I wanted to say last time I was here, I talked about embracing being the victim, right? So I'm not glossing over that. You can't jump right into forgiveness if you haven't fully been the victim, not in a way of indulging in the victimhood, but in really expressing how wrong they were to you. Really, like it's the last time you're going to express it, so you can stop carrying the story with you because you're the one that hurts from that. Excuse me. So it's like it's really letting the anger out in healthy, really, like I effing hate him, you know. I'm saying really work it. Don't just be like, oh, I'm so mad. Whatever you need to do to get to the level where you release it from your body. I didn't release my anger toward my dad because I tried to do a little exercise once. And last time I think I gave the healing of memories or freeform writing last time to help with that. But today is about giving up your need to be right. You have to be fully the victim, and then the next stage is really healing is giving up your need to be right and giving up your righteousness. We're righteous when we say, well, that person wronged me, and so I'm not going to have them in my life. That energy, you can use discernment, but it's the emotion that just, it's like comes right back at you. You're right. That any place your heart is close to someone else, it's close to you. So you can say, using discernment, that person really wronged me and they're unwilling to take responsibility. And I don't want to be around a person like that. And if you're holding something for decades, I'm sure you were a different person back then too. But we also have to forgive ourselves for trusting someone who hurt us, right? A lot of people in divorces and things, they won't go there. Like, oh yeah, I chose that person. Oh, I didn't see those qualities. Forgive yourself, forgive them so that you can, and forgiving meaning, well, it's always, the point of power is always in you. Forgive yourself for trusting that person or making that decision and then building a relationship with your inner child, journal writing, doing things like that so that you make better decisions. Sometimes we don't see what's coming, but oftentimes we do see what's coming. We just have blinders on. So, all right, let me go to the exercises in the book. I know Bonnie said she read it. And then I'm going to write the exercises. I had some reading, but because I want you guys to get this. Do you guys have grab a pen and paper? Or, I mean, I think it's better with a notebook. I want you guys to ask these. I want you guys to do these questions. Oh, there's 2 exercises here. Okay, so, okay. The first one is bringing unconscious to conscious awareness. You can jot down whatever notes you want so that you, when you have more time, you can even do this. I mean, you can do these over and over with different people in your life. So take an honest look at yourself and your relationships and answer these questions. Are you judgmental of yourself? And probably what I could do, like this is a Kindle book, it's only $2.99, but I can probably take like a picture maybe of these pages and text them to Mary Grace or something if you want the questions. Are you judgmental of others? So what you want to do on this page is write down all the judgments you have about yourself or someone else and the one payoff you're getting for holding them. That's the thing people sometimes don't want to do. But if you see that there's a payoff, your life can transform. So an example I would give is I, Brenda, judge myself as a failure. Oh no, sorry. Self-forgiveness. I, Brenda, judge my mother as a failure because she didn't leave my father. Payoff. I can hang on to my righteousness and not feel my guilt that underlies everything because I couldn't save her life. Done a lot of work on this since, but you know, that is something maybe to deal with like a family member who you love who's in some kind, right? This could be a really good exercise. Example 2, I, Brenda, judge my father as cold-hearted and untrustworthy. Payoff, I feel this protects me from feeling bad that he's no longer in my life and gives me the strength to keep him out of my life. Sometimes sometimes, yeah, we don't know how to set a healthy boundary, so we judge them. I, Brenda, judge my brother as abandoning me when he should have been taking care of me. The payoff, I don't have to take responsibility for my part in the lack of the relationship. Like I said, there's a difference between stating facts and using discernment to make wise decisions and holding a judgment and consciousness. So you don't want to have a charge. You can just take a minute to write some of those down and then I'll go on, just so you know the top things will come out. I'll give you a minute. And then I'll give you the whole exercise so that you can do it afterwards. And then I'll take some questions. You should really use the time to write. You know why? Because I tend to do this kind of stuff, and then the second I get off the Zoom, I forget about it, and then I didn't do it. So this way you can pick it up afterwards.
Payoff. What is the...
What?
I'm trying to figure out my payoff.
Figure out what? Who is it?
This is Carolyn. And I wrote, I am angry at myself for letting former students down by abandoning them. I haven't kept in contact with them, and I haven't figured out the payoff yet.
Is
Maybe,
is there
no,
possibly
you go ahead.
Is there possibly a payoff of something not allowing yourself more happiness, or it's like evidence that there's a reason for you not to have something in your life? Just inquiring about that. No, I don't see. Oh, there you are. Does that resonate at all?
No, but I'm thinking maybe, one thing I figured out about forgiveness while listening to you, thank you, is that particularly in this kind of situation, it's kind of a narcissistic ego thing that, I have such an import on them. Of course, they did say so, but, I know about the law of attraction and how they attracted my reaction.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's interesting to even look at. Yeah, look at where we have those narcissistic tendencies, that everything's about us, that we're the center of the universe, that we say either save someone or mess up their lives, because that's not true either. That's really good. That's great.
I think I'm afraid that I can't, oh, for crying out loud, that I can't lead them even better or even more, or I can't be there for them the way it would be best. I can't be perfect.
And then I would go even deeper and like, that's great. And then say, what does that mean if you can't be perfect?
Right. What's underneath that?
Yeah. Right. And
I'll be abandoned.
That's interesting. So that might be different for different people, but yes. And then that's where you have your real healing, because then you look at where in your past did you feel abandoned. And the fix is that you don't abandon yourself anymore. That's big. That's how it works. I mean, that's how it works. I've been coaching since 2005, but look at that. So you keep asking the questions.
Great.
That's great. That's great. Okay.
So you said the fix is not.
I didn't say the fix.
Yeah,
well,
you said.
I said the real healing from that, just from that little bit of dialogue, to me, you want to do the process as it is, but then it would be the next step, which is not actually in this exercise, but is looking at that abandonment issue. And the fix is in you not abandoning yourself. This is a big one. This was my issue. I had to learn that I felt abandoned by my mother. I felt abandoned by my father. I felt abandoned by my brother. But was that true? Is it really true? No. But what was true is I was abandoning myself with my thoughts, with my lack of self-care, with my lack of intimacy, with pushing people away. And when I realized that, I was like, well, why don't I parent myself? Why don't I be the mother to my child? Why don't I be the father to my inner child? And that changed everything for me.
Thank you.
Welcome. So number 2, I'll just, because I know we're running out of time, would be then finding compassion. It's a visualization exercise. So what you'll do with this is you'll choose one person from exercise 1, but you'll have a longer list than probably what you wrote here, that you have the most judgment against. And imagine that you're living in their shoes. Get a clear picture of this person in your mind. And if it's too hard to start with the worst, then start with something that was smaller. But gosh, if you've been holding on to anger towards someone for 40 years, 30 years, 50 years, that might be where you want to start. And if you need support, go to a therapist. If you need support, go to a coach. I'm a coach, but if you need support, have a friend before you do this, call them before you do the exercise, call them afterwards. So B of this is ask these questions as if you are them in the first person, right? So you're asking them, it's like kind of like a gestalt, but how was your upbringing? You're asking them. For example, if I was asking my brother, who I was so angry with for so long, I might say, as him, and I know some of this, but you can channel it. You can use your inner guidance to answer it. It was really hard growing up in a household where my stepfather hated me. That would be accurate for my brother to say. And in saying that and me remembering that, my heart just opens toward him. So use your imagination to believe that you've lived their life. 2, asking this person that you've held this anger toward, have you had chips? How did your parents treat you? 4, were you taught the skills of self-love and personal responsibility? I can bet you they weren't if they're treating you like this. So you're answering as them. This is where that oneness comes in. I did this around my aunt. It was super powerful. And for my brother. What is your typical day like is question number 5. What is your typical day like? Are they happy? Are they joyous? Probably not. 6, are you at peace? And then what you want to do, if you are devoted to releasing this and you feel like you're really being harmed by these feelings toward them, is you go down the list and you complete this exercise with each person. You might do a person a day. And then the last part is journaling about any insights that you may have gained. It is a phenomenal exercise to find compassion for this person that you have not been able to let go of. So that was the main exercise. And then the only other thing I will leave you with is always practice self-forgiveness. It's always about self-love, what I teach. So it's just, that would more be, I forgive myself for judging myself as mean because I cut my brother out of my life. The truth is I did what I needed to survive. The truth is when I did that, I actually found myself during the time that I was alone, right? So those are the reframes. Everyone take a nice deep breath in. Just, does anyone have any questions before we finish? What is that, Lolani?
Yeah, Lonnie, yes. I just want to thank you. It's amazing because you know, I personally have a tendency to hear advice or information, and I could take it in and say, oh, I know it, but your brain synapses don't really hold it because your heart hurts. And so 2 things, thank you. And while you were here talking about forgiveness, someone who had been trying to get in touch with me, who I had betrayed me for years, kept coming to me. So they'd been reaching out to me as my mom was sick and different things, but I just wasn't engaging. But something you were saying was holding the synapses together. So I just texted them and said, I thank you so much for being there when I could not receive it, and now I can. So thank you very much. And they said, last night you were in my dream. Thank you for forgiving me. I hope we can move forward. This all happened right now. So I just want to say thank you, and thank you for allowing me to hear you and being in a space, and thank you all for being here and holding space, because I was able to let go of something which I realized during the exercise. It was my abandonment as a kid that would not allow this person to come back in to hurt me, but it was my abandonment of myself as an adult that wasn't allowing myself to actually, like you said, father and mother the kid, which is now a man. And I feel really honored to be a man with this boy that is now growing within me and has grown much bigger. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Wow, I'm glad I don't have my false lashes on today. Wow, they'd be dried off.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Brenda, that was a great presentation. What is the name of that book that you mentioned?
Wow, whew, I got to recover from that. That's so, like, here's the thing too, as you healed that, all of us got a bit of that healing. Like, that's so amazing. I kind of want a transcript of that because I want to write that in my sales pages. That's like, it's like instant. Is this the right way? I can't, let's see if I can.
Yeah, but we can't really read the title. Maybe.
Pretty self-explanatory. My father killed my mother and married my aunt, forgiving the unforgivable. It's on Amazon. It's a Kindle book, and it's
and that's where the exercises are. Is that correct?
yes. So it's half memoir and half exercises. So I give stories that show you why I do the exercises where I do. And I also, by the way, I just wanted to mention, have a course called Phoenix Rising, a 30-day journey into and through forgiveness, which has 30 exercises from my life that has a lot of these in it. And I put it on sale when COVID started, so you can get it. Was $200, and it's a pay what you can starting at $30, so it's $1 a day. That's a digital course. So if you're interested in that, maybe you can. I'm on Facebook, Brenda Adelman, and my email is brenda@forgivenessandfreedom.com. So let me know.
I will send that out by email to everyone, Brenda, if you send it to.
Okay, perfect. Because that program is like, that's everything. But yeah, this book has all these exercises in it as well. Beautiful. Thank you.